In 2014, in Houston, Texas, 32-year-old Jacqueline Wilson was in a relationship with 39-year-old Howard Ruffin. For around 5 years, they had shared a life filled with both love and tension. Together, they were raising 4 children, and on the outside, it seemed like a happy home. Jacqueline poured her entire being into caring for her family. Her children were her world, and she made sure they always felt loved, secure, and supported. Unfortunately, on the morning of Wednesday, October 3rd, 2024, tragedy struck at the Willow Green Apartments in northwest Harris County, shattering everything Jacqueline had worked so hard to protect. At around 8 a.m., residents were startled by the sound of 9 gunshots echoing through the complex. Someone quickly dialed 911, hoping for a miracle. But when first responders arrived, it was already too late. Jacqueline had been fatally shot. Her lifeless body was discovered in her apartment. The police immediately launched an investigation. They began by speaking to her neighbors, hoping to piece together what had happened. One neighbor shared a chilling detail that just days earlier, she had overheard a man threatening to kill Jacqueline. And when she saw police tape surrounding Jacqueline's apartment, her heart sank. She knew that threat had been real. Later that very day, a man walked into the Houston Police Department and confessed to the murder. Shockingly, it was Jacqueline's own boyfriend, Howard Ruffin. The man she had once trusted to help raise her children was now her admitted killer. Investigators quickly uncovered the disturbing truth. Jacqueline and Ruffin had not only been in a rocky relationship, but one scarred by years of domestic violence. Ruffin had a known history of abuse, not just with Jacqueline, but with women he had dated before. His past included multiple convictions for aggravated assault. In 2022, Jacqueline had finally filed a felony assault charge against him after a particularly violent incident. Despite the severity of the charge, it wasn't until a year later in 2023 that Ruffin was arrested, by chance, during a traffic stop. Even then, the justice system failed her. Ruffin posted a $7,500 bond and walked free. For the next 16 months, the Harris County authorities lost track of him, unaware of his release or any conditions tied to his bond. He lived without any formal monitoring. Jacqueline's mother, Denise Bibbs, had long been fearful for her daughter's safety. She pleaded with Jacqueline to leave Ruffin for good, knowing deep down that his presence was dangerous. But Jacqueline, like so many survivors, held on to hope that maybe, just maybe, things would improve. Eventually, she made the brave decision to end the relationship. She removed Ruffin's belongings from her apartment, ready to close that dark chapter of her life and begin anew. But Ruffin couldn't let go. He couldn't accept the breakup. Just 2 days after being released from jail following a brief court appearance, on the morning of October 3rd, Ruffin went to Jacqueline's apartment. Surveillance cameras captured everything. He entered her home, and within seconds, the two began arguing. Jacqueline's voice can be heard saying, "Go ahead," multiple times, likely responding to threats he was making. Then, in a matter of 20 seconds, the confrontation turned fatal. 9 gunshots rang out, followed by Jacqueline's agonizing screams. 2 of her children, just 4 and 7 years old, were in the apartment while the other 2 were in school. They witnessed the horrific murder of their mother. After the shooting, Ruffin calmly walked out of the apartment, leaving the scene as if nothing had happened. Desperate and terrified, Jacqueline's children ran to a nearby bus stop, begging for help. A woman responded to their cries and rushed to the apartment, but what she found was heartbreaking. Jacqueline was barely clinging to life. Despite efforts to save her, she succumbed to her injuries before emergency services, which she had called, could arrive. This time, Ruffin was arrested and remains in custody as he awaits trial. Jacqueline's mother, Denise, is determined to seek justice. She has vowed to attend every court hearing. "Every day he goes to court, I want him to see my husband and me," she told reporters. "I want him to remember what he did." Jacqueline's 4 children are now being raised by their grandmother and her husband. The family is doing their best to help the children heal from the trauma of witnessing such a violent and unthinkable act. The community has rallied around them. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers have donated to a GoFundMe campaign to support the children's future and help cover the costs of raising them without their beloved mother. Jacqueline's story is one of love, strength, and heartbreak. She deserved safety. She deserved peace. But in the end, she became another victim of a system that failed to protect her from the very danger she feared most. The heartbreaking story of Jacqueline Wilson's murder teaches us several powerful and sobering lessons. 1. Love is not enough to save a dangerous relationship. Even though Jacqueline hoped things would get better, emotional attachment can't fix someone who is abusive. Love should never come at the cost of one's safety. If a relationship is violent or manipulative, walking away is not weakness, it's survival. Number 2. Take threats of violence seriously. A neighbor reported hearing Ruffin threaten Jacqueline days before her death. Often, threats are dismissed or overlooked, but this story shows that verbal threats can quickly turn into deadly action. Every threat should be taken seriously and reported. 3. The justice system can fail victims. Despite a history of violence and active charges, Ruffin was able to walk free on bond and was not properly supervised. This gap in the system left Jacqueline unprotected. Her story underscores the need for reforms in how courts and law enforcement handle domestic violence cases. Number 4. Abusers often repeat patterns. Ruffin had a documented history of violence in previous relationships, yet he was able to continue the same behavior with Jacqueline. This shows that without proper accountability or rehabilitation, abusers are likely to reoffend. 5. Listen to your instincts and your loved ones. Jacqueline's mother, Denise, feared for her daughter's safety and encouraged her to leave the relationship. Tragically, Denise's fears came true. When loved ones express concern, it's often from a place of deep intuition and wisdom. Their warnings shouldn't be ignored. 6. Children are the silent victims of domestic violence. 2 of Jacqueline's young children witnessed their mother's murder. The emotional and psychological trauma they experienced will likely stay with them forever. This shows that domestic violence doesn't just affect the direct victim, it deeply harms children and families. 7. Communities can be a source of healing. In the aftermath, friends, neighbors, and strangers came together to support Jacqueline's children through donations and emotional support. Even in the darkest moments, community compassion and action can help families begin to heal. 8. Leaving an abuser is the most dangerous time. Jacqueline broke up with Ruffin and removed him from her life. But for many survivors, that's when violence escalates. This is why safety planning and protective services are so critical during and after leaving an abusive relationship. 9. The importance of enforcing protective measures. Jacqueline had filed a felony assault charge, yet Ruffin remained free without proper monitoring. This reveals a critical gap in how courts enforce protective measures. Stronger systems are needed to ensure that once a threat is identified, safeguards are put in place to protect victims, such as GPS monitoring, regular check-ins, or restraining orders that are actually enforced. 10. Domestic violence is not always visible. To the outside world, Jacqueline appeared to be living a stable life with her children and partner. But abuse often happens behind closed doors. This teaches us not to assume someone's safety or happiness based on appearances alone. We should approach others with compassion and never minimize signs of distress. 11. Survivors often stay out of hope, not weakness. Jacqueline's decision to hold on to the relationship wasn't out of weakness. It was out of belief, love, and hope that things might change. This helps us understand that survivors may stay with abusers for many complex reasons: emotional attachment, financial dependency, fear, or concern for their children. Judging them only adds to their isolation. 12. Abusers often manipulate the system. Ruffin knew how to use legal loopholes to stay out of jail. He posted bond, evaded consequences, and continued the cycle of abuse. Abusers often exploit weak spots in the justice system, which is why laws must be survivor-focused and designed to hold repeat offenders fully accountable. 13. The need for early education on healthy relationships. Had Ruffin, and people like him, been taught early on about emotional regulation, consent, and respect in relationships, some of this trauma might have been avoided. This story highlights the importance of educating youth on what healthy, nonviolent relationships look like. 14. Healing is a lifelong journey for the children left behind. Jacqueline's kids not only lost their mother, they witnessed her murder. The trauma they carry will affect their mental health, trust, relationships, and development for years. This reminds us that the impact of domestic violence is generational and that long-term therapy, support, and love are essential for healing. 15. Courage doesn't always prevent tragedy, but it still matters. Jacqueline was courageous. She eventually left, stood up to her abuser, and tried to reclaim her peace. Even though her life was taken, her bravery in breaking free still matters. It's a reminder that choosing oneself, even in fear, is still an act of strength.